Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a wild tale about Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, who somehow thought napping in a wine jar was a solid plan. Picture yourself in ancient Greece, the air thick with olive scented breezes, grapes bursting on the vine, and a tipsy god stumbling through a moonlit vineyard. You're there, sandals kicking up dust, as Dionysus, with his ivy crowned head and a goblet sloshing red, locks eyes with a clay jar big enough to hold a small horse. It's gleaming under the stars, practically winking at him. Fair warning, chasing a god this chaotic might leave you dizzy, and you probably won't survive this without craving a glass of Merlot. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're chilling tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a dusty Greek village square, the kind where goats outnumber people, and the night's alive with cricket chirps, torches flicker, casting shadows that dance like they've had a few too many. Dionysus staggers into view, his leopard skin cloak slipping off one shoulder, his grin wider than the Aegean Sea. He's not just any god. He's the life of the party, the one who taught humans how to turn grapes into liquid courage. But tonight, something's off. His eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, are heavy, like he's been partying since the Trojan War ended. You notice he's not heading for the tavern or the temple, but toward the massive wine jar half buried in the earth, its rim catching moonlight. Historically, Dionysus was worshipped as the god of wine, fertility, and ritual madness, with festivals like the Dionysia in Athens featuring theater and drunken revelry. That's mainstream. Think toga clad scholars nodding sagely. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient vases show Dionysus lounging with satyrs, looking suspiciously hungover, hinting he wasn't always the unstoppable party king. Historians still argue whether his myths symbolize divine ecstasy or just glorify binge drinking. You're not here to settle that debate, though. You're here to figure out why this guy's eyeing a jar like it's a five-star Airbnb. You inch closer, the air now tangy with fermenting grapes. Dionysus sways, muttering to himself, something about needing a break, and stupid Zeus and his lightning tantrums. You're no mind reader, but you catch the vibe. This god's burned out. Maybe it's the centuries of leading wild parades or dodging Hera's wrath. Whatever it is, he's drawn to that jar. It's not just any storage pot. Pithoi like these, often 6 feet tall, were used to store wine, oil, or grain in ancient Greece. This one's got intricate swirls painted on it, like it's whispering secrets only a god can hear. You stifle a chuckle as Dionysus trips over a vine, spilling wine on his cloak. Who put that there? He slurs, glaring at the ground like it personally insulted him. Joke 1. It's like watching your uncle at a wedding, convinced he can still dance like it's 1995. You're tempted to help him up, but you're just a mortal in this story, and gods don't take kindly to unsolicited advice. Instead, you watch him dust off and refocus on the jar, his fingers tracing its rim like he's sizing it up for a nap. The village around you buzzes faintly, someone's playing a lyre, and you hear distant laughter. You wonder if the locals know their patron god's about to do something epically weird. Another joke. If Dionysus had an Instagram, this moment would be captioned, "When your bed's too mainstream." You're starting to suspect this jar isn't just a random prop. Maybe it's got a story, or maybe Dionysus is just too sloshed to think straight. Either way, you're hooked, trailing him through the vineyard's shadows, your heart thumping like a drum at a Bacchic rave. You're still trailing Dionysus, his leopard skin cloak now snagging on a grapevine, as he stumbles away from that mysterious wine jar in the village square. The moonlight's fading, and you're suddenly yanked upward, like some divine Uber just airlifted you to Mount Olympus. You land in a marble hall, all gold columns and clouds swirling underfoot. It's a party up here, and not the chill kind. Think Coachella meets a frat house rager, with gods as the VIPs. Dionysus is in the thick of it, sloshing wine from a goblet the size of a kiddie pool. You're dodging flying ambrosia and trying to keep up, because something about this chaotic bash is pushing him toward his weird jar-napping plan. The air's thick with jasmine and ozone, probably from Zeus flexing his lightning nearby. You spot Aphrodite lounging on a couch, flirting with a flustered Ares, while Apollo strums a lyre so out of tune it's practically a war crime. Dionysus, though, is the center of the storm. He's dancing, badly, his arms flailing like he's swatting invisible bees. You wince as he bumps into Athena, who gives him a look that could curdle milk. "Watch it, wine boy," she snaps. Joke 1. It's like watching your cousin try breakdancing at a family reunion. Enthusiastic but painful. Historically, Mount Olympus was the mythical home of the Greek gods, described in Homer's Iliad as a divine HQ where they bickered and partied. That's the mainstream bit carved into every textbook. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient texts suggest Olympus had a no mortals allowed policy, yet Dionysus, born half human, always seemed to sneak in plus ones. Historians still argue whether his presence there symbolizes divine acceptance or just a really good fake ID. You're not solving that puzzle now. You're too busy ducking a goblet Hermes just yeeted across the room. You notice Dionysus's energy fading. His dance moves slow, his grin falters, and he's muttering about needing a vacation. The other gods don't seem to care. Zeus is arm wrestling Poseidon, and Hera's plotting something shady in the corner. You catch Dionysus eyeing the exit, his gaze distant like he's picturing that wine jar back on Earth. You remember its swirly patterns, the way it gleamed like it was calling him. Maybe it's not just a jar. Maybe it's his escape plan from this divine circus. You weave through the crowd, the marble floor cold under your sandals. A satyr bumps into you, offering a sip from his wineskin. You decline. Last thing you need is to end up like Dionysus, who's now attempting to moonwalk and failing spectacularly. Joke 2. It's like watching a TikTok dance trend crash and burn in real time. You're starting to get why he's burned out. This party's been going for, what, centuries? You'd want a nap too if your job was keeping up with these immortal egomaniacs. The music shifts, a wild drum beat that makes your chest thump. Dionysus climbs onto a table, raising his goblet for a toast. "To chaos!" he shouts, but his voice cracks, and he sways, nearly toppling into a platter of figs. You're close enough to see the bags under his eyes. Do gods even get those? He's not just tired, he's done. You feel a pang of sympathy, like when you see your friend push through a double shift on no sleep. You glance at the other gods who are now chanting his name, egging him on. It's clear they expect him to keep the party going forever. But you're picking up on something else. A restlessness in Dionysus, a itch to ditch this golden cage. Joke 3. Olympus is basically a divine reality show, and Dionysus is ready to quit mid-season. You're betting that wine jar is his ticket out, a weird but tempting hideaway. As he stumbles off the table, you follow, sensing he's about to bolt back to Earth, and that jar. You're back on Earth, the Olympus Rager, a fading echo as you stand in a sun-drenched vineyard. Vines heavy with purple grapes. The air smells like sweet rot and warm soil, and you're watching Dionysus, his cloak now stained with Olympian wine, as he surveys his domain. He's not dancing anymore. He's pacing, muttering about how he invented wine, the drink that makes mortals sing and cry. You're here to unravel how this boozy gift ties to that wine jar he's obsessed with, the one you saw gleaming in the village square. It's like he's brewing a plan, and you're along for the ride. Sandals sinking into the dirt. You follow him through rows of vines, their leaves brushing your arms like a soft whisper. Dionysus stops, plucks a grape, and pops it in his mouth, chewing thoughtfully. "This," he says, gesturing at the vineyard, "is my masterpiece." You nod, because, yeah, Wine's kind of a big deal. Historically, wine was central to ancient Greek culture, used in religious rituals and social gatherings, with amphora, smaller cousins of that pythos jar, shipped across the Mediterranean. That's the mainstream fact, etched in museum plaques. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient Greeks believed wine was literally Dionysus's blood, a divine essence that could possess you. Historians still argue whether this was poetic metaphor or a legit cult belief. You're not sure, but you feel the vineyard's pulse, like it's alive with his power. Dionysus kneels, scooping dirt and sniffing it like a chef testing broth. You're struck by how focused he is, not the sloppy drunk from Olympus. He's telling you, well, the vines, but you're eavesdropping, how he taught mortals to crush grapes, ferment juice, and store it in clay jars. You picture that massive pythos again, its swirls catching moonlight. Maybe it's not just a storage pot. Maybe it's a piece of his legacy. You're starting to think his nap idea isn't random. He's tired, sure, but there's something deeper, like he's craving a connection to his own creation. You step over a gnarled root, and Dionysus chuckles, noticing you. Careful, mortal, or you'll end up as fertilizer. Joke 1. It's like your GPS warning you about a pothole, but with divine sass. You grin, but you're keeping your distance. He's a god, not your buddy. The vineyard stretches forever, and you hear bees buzzing, drunk on overripe grapes. It's peaceful, but there's a tension, like Dionysus is wrestling with something. You catch him glancing at the horizon, where the village lies, and you bet he's thinking about that jar. You pause by a vine, its grapes so dark they're almost black. Dionysus rambles about wine's magic, how it loosens tongues, sparks love, and sometimes starts fistfights. You're reminded of your last party, where someone spilled Cabernet on your shoes. Joke 2, wine's like Wi-Fi. Amazing when it works, chaos when it doesn't. You're starting to see why Dionysus is both proud and exhausted. Wine's his baby, but it's a handful, like raising a toddler who never sleeps. You wonder if that jar is his version of a timeout chair. The sun's dipping, painting the vines gold, and Dionysus's mood shifts. He's quieter, his fingers tracing a vine's bark. Mortals get it, he murmurs. They drink, they live. You're not sure if he's jealous or just nostalgic, but you feel his weight. Centuries of being the god of excess. You're tempted to ask about the jar, but he's already moving, heading toward the village. You follow, the vineyard's hum fading as you near the square. That pythos looms in your mind, its clay cool to the touch, like it's waiting for him. You trip on a stone, and Dionysus laughs again. Mortals, he sighs, like you're a puppy who chewed his sandals. Joke 3. It's like your mom catching you sneaking cookies. Fond, but judgy. You're back in the village now, the air cooler, torches flickering. The jar's ahead, and Dionysus's eyes light up, like he's found an old friend. You're not sure what's pulling him to it, but you're hooked, ready to see where this vineyard-born obsession leads. You're back in the village square, the night air buzzing with festival vibes. Think street fair meets ancient Greek rager. Torches cast a warm glow, and mortals are dancing, laughing, and spilling wine like it's their job. You're weaving through the crowd, trying to keep Dionysus in sight. He's crashed this mortal party, his ivy crown tilted, his grin wild as he swings a goblet like a party favor. You're here to see how this chaotic scene nudges him closer to that wine jar you keep picturing, the one with swirls that seem to hum with secrets. The energy's electric, but you're sensing trouble, like a storm brewing behind his laughter. The square's packed. Merchants hawking olives, kids chasing a stray dog, and drunks singing off-key hymns to Dionysus himself. He's loving it, diving into the crowd like a rock star stage diving. You dodge a flailing dancer, her garland slipping as she twirls. Historically, festivals like the Anthesteria honored Dionysus with wine-drinking contests and processions, a mainstream fact tied to ancient Athens' calendar. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some sources claim these festivals included ghost days, where spirits supposedly roamed, and Dionysus's presence stirred both joy and fear. Historians still argue whether these ghost stories were symbolic or taken literally by tipsy worshippers. You're not sure, but the air feels heavy, like something supernatural's watching. Dionysus leaps onto a cart, raising his goblet. "Drink, mortals," he roars, and the crowd cheers, though some look nervous, like they know gods don't party lightly. You're close enough to see wine dribbling down his chin, his eyes glinting with that half-mad spark. You remember the vineyard, his pride in creating wine, but here it's like he's testing it, seeing how far mortals can push his gift. You spot that pythos jar across the square, half buried, its clay glowing faintly. He hasn't noticed it yet, but you're betting it's about to steal his attention. You sidestep a puddle of spilled wine. Gross, but better than your sandals sticking. Dionysus is now tossing grapes into the crowd, laughing as people scramble. Joke 1. It's like a piñata party, but the candy's fruit, and the vibe's divine. You're starting to feel the chaos, like you're one bad decision from joining the conga line. But then things escalate. A drunk potter stumbles into Dionysus, spilling wine on his cloak. The crowd gasps, and you freeze, expecting a smite. Instead, Dionysus cackles, slinging an arm around the guy. "Bold move, buddy," he says, but you catch a flicker of exhaustion in his eyes. You're weaving closer to the jar now, its presence like a magnet. The festival's getting sloppier, someone's knocked over a table, and a lyre player's passed out mid-song. You're reminded of that Olympus party, how Dionysus seemed ready to bolt. Joke 2, this is like a bar crawl where the designated driver's already 3 shots deep. You're wondering if he's crashing this party to escape his divine duties or just to feel something. Either way, he's not pacing himself, and that jar is starting to look like a timeout zone. You pause by a stall, the air tangy with roasting meat. Dionysus is now leading a chant, but his voice wavers, like he's running on fumes. You glance at the jar again. It swirls, almost pulsing under the torchlight. You're starting to think it's not just a prop. Maybe it's tied to his wine, his essence, his need for a break. The crowd's too drunk to notice, but you see him sway, his gaze drifting toward the jar. It's like he's hearing it call, the same way you heard your bed whisper after an all-nighter. You trip over a discarded wineskin, and a nearby granny laughs. "Watch your step, dreamer," she says, like she knows you're not fully here. Joke 3. It's like your phone autocorrecting your life to oops. You're back on Dionysus's trail, the festival swirling around you. He's staggering toward the jar now, the crowd parting like they sense something big. You're hooked, your heart thumping as you follow, ready to see what happens when a god decides to crash, literally, into his own creation. You're still in the village square, the festival's chaos swirling like a drunken tornado, but your eyes are locked on Dionysus. He's no longer leading the crowd's chants. He's drifting toward that massive wine jar, the pythos you can't stop thinking about. Its clay surface gleams under flickering torches, those swirling patterns pulling him in like a moth to a flame. You're trailing close, dodging spilled wine and stray sandals, trying to figure out why this jar has got him so fixated. The air's thick with grape tang and anticipation, and you're sensing this moment's a turning point. Like when you spot your bed after a red-eye flight. Dionysus stops a few feet from the jar, his goblet dangling loosely in one hand. He's staring at it, head tilted, like it's whispering his name. You inch closer, the crowd's noise fading to a dull hum. Historically, pithoi were practical in ancient Greece. Huge clay vessels for storing wine, oil, or grain, often buried to keep contents cool. That's the mainstream fact, straight from Archaeology 101. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some myths hint that certain pithoi were sacred, used in rituals to channel divine energy, almost like cosmic batteries. Historians still argue whether these jars were just fancy storage or actual mystical objects. You're leaning toward mystical because this one's got a vibe, like it's daring Dionysus to do something wild. You notice his fingers brush the jar's rim, slow and deliberate. Old friend, he murmurs, and you're not sure if he's talking to the jar or the wine inside. You remember the vineyard, how he called wine his masterpiece. This jar is part of that legacy, but it's more like a piece of him, maybe. You're starting to think his nap idea isn't just drunken nonsense. It's a pull towards something deeper, like he's craving a reset inside his own creation. The festival is still raging behind you. Someone's attempting a backflip and failing miserably. Joke 1. It's like watching a cat video where the cat just face plants. You're tempted to laugh, but Dionysus's mood keeps you grounded. He's circling the jar now, his cloak dragging in the dirt. You catch a whiff of its contents, rich, fermented, almost dizzying. You're wondering if climbing inside is even possible. It's tall, sure, but narrow at the top. Then again, he's a god. Physics probably owes him a favor. You step closer, the jar's clay cool under your palm. Dionysus doesn't notice you. He's too busy muttering about rest and Olympus nonsense. You're piecing it together. The party on Olympus, the vineyard's wait, this festival's chaos. It's all piling up. He's not just tired. He's overwhelmed, like you after a week of deadlines and no coffee. Joke 2. The jar's basically his version of a weighted blanket, but with more alcohol. You're starting to feel for him, this god who's supposed to be endless but looks like he's running on empty. A stray grape rolls by your foot, and you glance back at the crowd. They're oblivious, lost in their wine-soaked haze, but you're locked on Dionysus. He taps the jar and it hums, a low, eerie sound that makes your skin prickle. You're not imagining it. This thing's special, maybe enchanted. You recall those swirls, how they seem to move under the moonlight. Is it a portal, a divine hideout? You're dying to know, but you're just a mortal, stuck watching a god wrestle with his midlife crisis. Dionysus laughs suddenly, a sharp bark. Why not? He says, like he's arguing with the jar. You stifle a grin, joke 3. It's like your friend hyping themselves up to try sushi for the first time. He's swaying, but his eyes are bright, fixed on the jar's opening. The festival's noise spikes, a lyre string snaps, someone cheers. But you're in his orbit now, the jar looming like a clay monolith. You're betting he's about to make a move, and you're not missing it. Your heart thumping as you lean in, ready for whatever this god's got planned. You're still in the village square, the festival's roar a wild pulse, but you're zeroed in on Dionysus, who's practically hypnotized by that massive wine jar. Its clay swirls seem to shimmer, and he's inches from it, his goblet forgotten on the ground. Suddenly, the crowd parts, and a pack of Maenads, Dionysus's frenzied followers, bursts through, their eyes wild, hair tangled with ivy. They're chanting his name, waving torches, and you're dodging their flailing arms, trying to keep up as they swarm him. You're here to see how these wild women stir trouble, pushing Dionysus toward his reckless, jar-napping scheme. The air is electric, like a storm's about to break. The Maenads are a whirlwind, skirts torn, feet bare, their laughter sharp as shattered glass. They circle Dionysus, tugging his cloak, urging him to dance, to drink, to unleash chaos. You're caught in their orbit, the scent of pine and wine overwhelming. Historically, Maenads were real in a sense. Women in ancient Greece joined ecstatic rituals for Dionysus, dancing and drinking to reach divine frenzy. That's the mainstream fact, documented in texts like Euripides' Bacchae. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient art shows Maenads wielding thyrsus staffs that supposedly shot sparks, hinting at shamanic or even hallucinogenic vibes. Historians still argue whether their frenzy was spiritual ecstasy or just really good wine. You're not sure, but these ladies are intense, and you're keeping your distance. Dionysus grins at them, but you catch a flicker of strain, like he's humoring a hyperactive fan club. Easy, sisters, he slurs, waving them off, but they're relentless, pressing closer. One Maenad, with coal-streaked eyes, shoves a wineskin at him. "Drink, lord," she shrieks, and you wince. Her voice could wake a coma patient. You're starting to see why he's eyeing that jar like a bunker. You remember its hum, the way it seemed to call him. Maybe it's his escape from these overzealous hype women. You duck as a Maenad swings her torch, nearly singeing your tunic. Joke 1. It's like dodging your friend who's way too into karaoke night. The festival's still raging, someone's juggling figs badly, but the Maenads are the real chaos engine. They're chanting about tearing the sky apart, and you're hoping that's metaphorical. Dionysus stumbles, caught in their dance, his cloak now half off. You're wondering if they're egging him toward the jar or just pushing him to snap. Either way, you're sticking close, your heart racing like you're in a mosh pit. You glance at the jar, its rim catching torchlight. It's still there, unmoved, like it's waiting. Dionysus' eyes dart to it, and you catch a spark of determination, like he's made a decision. The Maenads don't notice. They're too busy howling and stomping. You're starting to think they're not just fans, but a force of nature, amplifying his wild side. Joke 2. They're like Red Bull for a god who's already on his 10th espresso. You're feeling the pressure too, like you're one wrong step from being swept into their frenzy. A Maenad grabs your arm, mistaking you for a reveler. "Dance," she barks, and you pull free, muttering about needing to check on the goats. She laughs, but you're shaken. This crew's no joke. Dionysus, meanwhile, is swaying, his gaze locked on the jar. You're betting he's thinking it's a better hideout than dealing with this lot. The air's thick with smoke and sweat, and you're coughing, but you can't look away. The jar's hum is back, faint but insistent, like a heartbeat. You trip over a discarded wineskin, and Maenad cackles. "Clumsy mortal," she teases, tossing you a grape. Joke 3. It's like your gym coach yelling hustle while you're already wheezing. You're back on track, weaving through the Maenads to stay near Dionysus. He's muttering now, something about peace and clay dreams. The jar's closer than ever, and you're hooked. Your pulse pounding as you watch him edge toward it, the Maenad's chaos driving him straight to his bizarre plan. You're no longer in the village square's frenzy. You've slipped into a quiet vineyard under a twilight sky, the air cool and heavy with grape sweetness. The Maenad's howls are a distant echo, and you're walking beside Dionysus, who's ditched his goblet and cloak, looking more like a tired poet than a party god. His steps are slow, deliberate, as he weaves through vines that seem to lean toward him, like pets nuzzling their owner. You're here to explore this sacred vineyard, sensing the divine exhaustion rolling off him, the kind that's pushing him toward that wine jar you can't stop picturing. The world feels softer, but there's a weight, like the calm before a big decision. The vineyard stretches endless, rows of gnarled vines glowing faintly, as if kissed by starlight. You brush a leaf, its texture waxy, and catch Dionysus muttering to himself, something about too much noise, too many demands. You're starting to get it. This place is his sanctuary, where he's not performing for Olympians or mortals. Historically, vineyards were sacred to Dionysus, often attached to temples where his worshippers offered wine-soaked rituals. That's the mainstream fact, carved into ancient records. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some Greek myths claim his vineyards grew overnight, conjured by his touch, with grapes that never spoiled. Historians still argue whether these stories were divine propaganda or just farmers' wishful thinking. You're not sure, but this place feels alive, like it's breathing with him. Dionysus pauses, kneeling to cradle a grape cluster. "You get it, don't you?" he says. Maybe to you, maybe to the vine. His voice is low, raw, like he's confessing. You're struck by his fatigue, eyes shadowed, shoulders slumped. You remember the jar, its clay hum, and wonder if it's calling him even now, promising rest. You're walking closer, the dirt soft under your sandals, and you feel the vineyard's pulse, like it's mirroring his heartbeat. This isn't just a farm, it's his soul laid bare, every vine a thread of his legacy. A breeze stirs, carrying a whiff of fermenting fruit. Dionysus stands, swaying, and you catch him glance toward the village, where that Pythos waits. You're betting he's imagining its cool, dark interior. Joke 1. It's like craving your couch after a day of adulting, but with more divine flair. You're tempted to ask him outright, why the jar? But he's moving again, trailing fingers along vines like he's saying goodbye. You follow, your tunic snagging on a thorn, and you wince, shaking it free. You're halfway down a row when he stops, staring at the horizon. They never stop, he murmurs, and you know he means the Maenads, the Olympians, the mortals. You're feeling it too, the weight of expectation, like when your inbox won't quit pinging. Joke 2. Being a god sounds like managing a group chat that never sleeps. You're starting to see the jar as his off button, a way to mute the chaos. The vineyard's quiet amplifies his mood, and you're wondering if this is where his nap plan was born, among these vines that love him back. A bat swoops low, and you duck, heart skipping. Dionysus chuckles, a soft sound. Jumpy mortal, he teases, but there's no bite. You grin, but you're focused on his next move. The vineyard's edge is near, the village's torches flickering in the distance. You picture outside the jar. It swirls alive under moonlight. Is it enchanted, sacred? You're dying to know, but you're just along for the ride. Your pulse steady as you trail him. You step on a twig, the snap loud in the stillness. Dionysus glances back, smirking. Stealthy as a bull, he says. Joke 3. It's like trying to sneak snacks during a Zoom call. Busted. You're almost at the vineyard's border now, the village close. He's picking up speed like he's drawn to the jar again, its promise of rest louder than ever. You're hooked, your breath hitching as you follow, ready to see how this tired god's vision unfolds. You're whisked back to Mount Olympus, the vineyard's calm replaced by a glittering hall where gods lounge on clouds, sipping ambrosia like it's happy hour. The air is sharp with ozone and ego, and you're dodging stray lightning sparks from Zeus's throne. Dionysus is here, slumped on a marble bench, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. You're eavesdropping on a divine debate about his need for a nap. The Olympians mocking his burnout while you piece together how their jabs push him toward that wine jar you keep seeing in your mind. It's like a cosmic roast session, and Dionysus is the reluctant guest of honor. The hall's a spectacle, gold pillars, floating lyres, and a peacock strutting like it owns the place, probably Hera's. Apollo's strumming a tune, smirking as he calls Dionysus the god of midlife crises. Athena, polishing her spear, mutters about irresponsible deities. You're trying not to laugh, but Dionysus just sighs, swirling a goblet he's barely touched. Historically, Greek gods were anthropomorphic, their bickering in myths like the Iliad, reflecting human flaws, jealousy, pride, and all. That's the mainstream fact, straight from ancient texts. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some obscure stories claim gods could tire, with ambrosia acting like divine Red Bull to recharge them. Historians still argue whether this was symbolic or a literal take on immortal stamina. You're betting Dionysus skipped his dose because he looks done. You sidle closer, the marble floor cold under your sandals. Dionysus mutters, "They think I'm slacking," and you catch his glance toward the mortal world where that Pythos waits. You remember its clay hum, the vineyard's pull, the god's mockery, Hera's eye roll. Poseidon's guffaw is like fuel, pushing him to prove something wild like napping in a jar. You're starting to think it's less about rest and more about sticking it to these smug immortals. A nymph offers you a fig, and you decline, too focused on Dionysus. Apollo leans in, teasing. What's next? Sleeping in a barrel? The gods laugh, but Dionysus's jaw tightens. Joke 1. It's like your coworker's roasting your coffee nap idea, but with more thunderbolts. You're feeling his frustration, like when your group project team slacks off but calls you lazy. You're wondering if the jar's his way of flipping the table, a divine I'm out moment. You duck as Hermes zips by, trailing glittery dust. The debate heats up. Athena's lecturing about duty, while Aphrodite defends Dionysus, batting her lashes. Let him rest, he's earned it, she purrs. But her tone's more flirty than sincere. You're catching the vibe. They don't get his exhaustion, not like you did in the vineyard. Joke 2, it's like explaining burnout to your boss who thinks vacations are for quitters. You're rooting for Dionysus now, hoping he'll ditch this circus for that jar's quiet embrace. You notice him stand, his movements slow but deliberate. He's ignoring Zeus's booming laugh, his eyes distant like he's already halfway to the village square. You picture the jar's swirls, its cool clay promising peace. Is it just a nap spot or something more? A symbol, a rebellion? You're dying to know, but you're stuck here, surrounded by gods who think downtime's a sin. A stray cloud brushes your arm, damp and chilly, and you shiver, refocusing on Dionysus. He mutters something about clay and dreams, and you lean in, heart thumping. Artemis, nearby, snorts. Dreams? Try working for once. Ouch. Joke 3. It's like your gym buddy mocking your rest day while flexing. Dionysus doesn't snap back. He just smirks, like he's got a secret. You're betting that secret's the jar, and you're hooked, trailing him as he edges toward the hall's exit, the Olympian's laughter fading. You're ready to follow him back to Earth, where that Pythos is waiting to change everything. You're back in the village square. The festival's chaos a low hum as you stand near that massive wine jar, its clay swirls glowing faintly under torchlight. Dionysus is here, his cloak rumpled, eyes fixed on the Pythos like it's the answer to a question he hasn't asked out loud. The Maenads are nowhere in sight, and the crowd's too drunk to notice him. You're close enough to feel the jar's strange aura, a tingling hum that makes your skin prickle. You're here to uncover the jar's hidden power, the mystical pull that's drawing Dionysus closer, like a moth to a very boozy flame. The jar looms, taller than you, its surface cool despite the warm night. You trace a swirl with your finger, and it's like touching a live wire, subtle but alive. Dionysus mutters, "You feel it too, don't you?" And you nod, though you're not sure what it is. Historically, large pythoi were sometimes used in Greek rituals, not just for storage, but as offerings to gods, buried with wine or oil to honor the divine. That's the mainstream fact, dug up from ancient sites. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some myths whisper that certain jars were enchanted, forged by Hephaestus, or blessed by gods to hold more than just liquid, maybe power, maybe dreams. Historians still argue whether these were symbolic vessels or actual magical artifacts. You're betting on magic, because this jar's got a vibe that screams not your average pottery. Dionysus circles it, his steps unsteady but purposeful. You're catching his mood, part curiosity, part desperation. You remember the vineyard's quiet, his exhaustion, and the Olympian's mockery. This jar is more than a nap spot. It's a refuge, maybe a piece of his essence. You're starting to think its power is tied to wine itself. His creation, his legacy. The air smells of fermenting grapes, and you're dizzy, like the jar's aura is seeping into you. A stray dog barks, snapping you back. Dionysus chuckles, leaning against the jar. Mortals and their noise, he sighs. Joke 1. It's like your neighbor's dog losing it at 3 a.m. Rude but relatable. You're tempted to ask about the jar's deal, but he's tracing its patterns now, his fingers slow, reverent. You're wondering if it's a divine artifact, like that ambrosia the gods chug on Olympus. Maybe it's a battery for his power, or a portal to somewhere quiet. You're hooked, your pulse quickening as you watch him. You step back, giving him space, but you're still close enough to feel the jar's hum. The festival's fading into background noise. Someone's dropped a lyre, and it twangs pitifully. You're focused on Dionysus, who's muttering about rest and Clay's embrace. You're piecing it together. The Maenad's frenzy, Olympus's pressure, the vineyard's weight. It's all driving him to this jar. Joke 2. It's like choosing a sensory deprivation tank, but with better aesthetics. You're starting to see it as his ultimate hideout, a place to recharge his divine batteries. A breeze stirs, carrying the scent of smoke and wine. You glance at the crowd, oblivious to the god in their midst. The jar's aura feels stronger now, like it's waking up. You're wondering if Dionysus made it, or if it's older, crafted by some forgotten deity. You recall those Olympian jabs about his slacking. Maybe this is his comeback, a nap that's also a power move. You're dying to see what's next, but you're just a mortal, stuck watching a god flirt with a clay jug. You trip over a loose stone, and Dionysus smirks. Graceful? He teases, but his eyes are still on the jar. Joke 3. It's like spilling coffee on your shirt during a big meeting. Classic you. You're back in the moment, the jars hum louder, almost a song. Dionysus leans closer, his face lit by its glow. You're betting he's about to do something wild, and you're not blinking, your heart thumping as you wait for his next move, the jar's power pulling you both in. You're still in the village square, the festival's din a fuzzy backdrop as you stand near the glowing wine jar. Its clay swirls pulsing like a heartbeat. Dionysus is inches away, his eyes locked on it, but your attention snags on a bold mortal, a wiry potter with a sunburned nose, who's staggering forward, clutching a wineskin. He's got that liquid courage glint, and you're watching him challenge Dionysus, a move so reckless it's practically mythic. This guy's about to push the god closer to that jar-napping plan, and you're here for it, your sandals scuffing the dirt as you lean in, the air thick with wine and tension. The potter sways, pointing at Dionysus. You call yourself a god? He slurs, loud enough to draw gasps from nearby revelers. Bet you can't outdrink me. The crowd hushes, and you wince. Challenging a deity is like poking a bear with a toothpick. Dionysus raises an eyebrow, his exhaustion masked by a slow, dangerous grin. Historically, mortals often tested gods in Greek myths, like Pentheus in the Bacchae, who doubted Dionysus and paid dearly. That's the mainstream fact, straight from ancient plays. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some obscure tales claim Dionysus occasionally humored mortal challenges, not to win but to teach a lesson, often with a twist. Historians still argue whether these stories show his mercy or just his love for drama. You're betting on drama because this potter's in deep. Dionysus steps closer to the jar, leaning against it like it's his wingman. You want a contest, clay shaper? He asks, voice silky but sharp. The potter nods, oblivious to the god's vibe shift. You're catching Dionysus's glance at the jar, like it's part of his strategy. You remember its hum, its mystical aura from the vineyard's quiet. Maybe he's not just dodging this challenge. Maybe he's using it to justify his nap plan. You're hooked, your heart thumping as the crowd forms a loose circle, whispering bets. The potter raises his wineskin, splashing wine on his tunic. Drink for drink, he bellows, and you stifle a laugh. Joke 1. It's like your uncle challenging a bartender to a shot contest, bold, but doomed. You're watching Dionysus, who's playing along, but his eyes keep drifting to the jar's rim. You're starting to think this challenge is a catalyst, pushing him to climb inside, maybe to prove something to this mortal or to himself. The air's heavy, the jar's glow brighter, like it's egging him on. You sidestep a spilled goblet, the ground sticky underfoot. The potter's already chugging, wine dribbling down his chin, while Dionysus sips slowly, almost bored. You're feeling the festival's chaos again. Maenad's howling somewhere, a lyre twanging off key, but you're focused on the jar. Its swirls seem to move, and you blink, wondering if it's the wine fumes or actual magic. You're betting it's magic tied to Dionysus's power, maybe a vessel for his essence. Joke 2, it's like a divine sleeping pod, but with better branding. You're wondering if the potter's challenge is the final shove he needs to crawl inside. The crowd cheers as the potter stumbles, his wineskin nearly empty. Dionysus, unfazed, leans closer to the jar, whispering something you can't catch. You're dying to know what's in his head: exhaustion from Olympus, the vineyard's weight, or just annoyance at this loudmouth. You recall the Maenads' frenzy, how they pushed him too. This mortal's just another nudge, and you're sensing the jar as his endgame, a hideout from all this noise. You trip on a stray grape, and a nearby kid giggles. "Watch it, dreamer," he says, tossing you a fig. Joke 3, it's like autocorrect turning your epic text into gibberish. Classic fumble. You're back on track, eyes on Dionysus, who's now staring into the jar's dark mouth. The potter collapses, snoring, and the crowd roars, but Dionysus ignores them, his fingers gripping the jar's rim. You're betting he's seconds from making his move, and you're not blinking, your pulse racing as you wait for the god to take this challenge to a whole new level. You're still in the village square, the festival's chaos simmering as the potter snores at Dionysus's feet, his wineskin limp. The crowd's buzzing, but Dionysus ignores them, his hands braced on the wine jar's rim. Its clay swirls, pulsing faintly. You're close enough to smell the fermented tang wafting from its dark mouth, and you're catching his mood, part defiance, part weariness. You're here to ponder wine's double edge, its joy and chaos, and how it reflects Dionysus's own dual nature, pulling him ever closer to that bizarre nap in the jar. The air's thick with torch smoke and anticipation, like you're on the edge of something big. Dionysus leans over the jar, peering inside, his ivy crown slipping. "You give and you take," he mutters, maybe to the wine, maybe to himself. You're thinking about wine's power, how it sparks laughter, loosens tongues, but also fuels fights and bad decisions. You recall the festival's highs and lows, dancers twirling, then that potter's reckless challenge. Historically, wine was a cornerstone of Greek life, used in symposia for philosophy and politics, but also blamed for debauchery. That's the mainstream fact etched in ancient texts. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some Greeks believed wine could reveal truth, calling it the mirror of the soul. Historians still argue whether this was poetic or a nod to its mind-altering effects. You're leaning toward both because Dionysus embodies that paradox: joyful liberator, chaotic destroyer. You step closer, the jar's hum tickling your skin. You're seeing him in a new light, not just a party god, but a force of balance, teetering between creation and madness. You remember the vineyard's pride, the Maenads' frenzy, the Olympians' mockery. Wine's his gift, but it's also his burden, like a hit song he can't stop performing. You're betting the jar's his way to grapple with that, a place to hide or maybe confront his own nature. The crowd's chanting his name, but he's oblivious, lost in the jar's pull. A stray grape rolls by, and you nudge it aside. Dionysus glances at you, smirking. "Careful, mortal, wine's sneaky." Joke 1. It's like stepping on Lego, but stickier and boozier. You grin, but you're focused on his words. He's talking about wine like it's alive, a partner in his divine dance. You're starting to think the jar is not just a vessel, it's a symbol of wine's duality, holding both its magic and its mayhem. You're wondering if napping inside is his way of embracing it, like diving into his own creation to understand it. The festival's noise spikes. Someone's dropped a tray of figs and laughter erupts. You're still by the jar, its clay cool under your palm. Dionysus is rambling now about how wine lifts mortals then drops them. You're feeling it, like that time you danced at a wedding but woke up with a headache. Joke 2 winds like a roller coaster, thrilling, until you're praying for solid ground. You're seeing his exhaustion clearer now, the weight of being the god of something so wild. The jar's glow feels like a promise, a chance to rest within his own chaos. You glance at the crowd, their faces flushed with wine's glow. They love Dionysus, but they don't see his struggle, not like you do. You're thinking about the Potter's Challenge, how it pushed him here. The jar's hum grows louder, almost a lullaby, and you're betting it's calling him to confront his dual nature, creator and chaos bringer. You're dying to know if he'll climb in, but you're just a mortal, watching a god wrestle with his own legend. A kid tosses a pebble, and it pings off the jar. Dionysus laughs, soft but tired. Even stones want in, he says. Joke 3. It's like your phone buzzing with notifications you can't ignore. You're back in the moment, the jar's aura wrapping around you. Dionysus is gripping its rim tighter, his eyes distant, like he's seeing past the clay to something deeper. You're hooked, your heart pounding as you wait, sensing he's closer than ever to making that nap a reality. You're still in the village square, the festival's clamor softening as torchlight dances on the wine jar's clay swirls. Dionysus is perched on its rim now, one leg dangling, his eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and fatigue. The potter's snores fade into the background, and the crowd's too tipsy to notice their god plotting something bizarre. You're close, feeling the jar's faint hum, and you're watching Dionysus scheme to nap inside this enchanted pythos, his plan taking shape like a half-baked but brilliant idea. The air's thick with wine and possibility, and you're hooked, your sandals scuffing the dirt as you lean in. Dionysus taps the jar, his fingers tracing its patterns like he's reading a map. "This'll do," he mutters, and you catch a spark of resolve, like he's finally committing. You're piecing it together. The Olympians' mockery, the Maenad's frenzy, the vineyard's weight, and that potter's dumb challenge have all led here. Historically, Dionysus was known for unconventional acts, turning pirates into dolphins, driving kings mad, showing his power through wild symbolic gestures. That's the mainstream fact, straight from myths like Ovid's Metamorphoses. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient cults believed he could enter objects like trees or jars to commune with his divine essence. Historians still argue whether this was metaphor or a literal belief in his shape-shifting. You're betting on literal because that jar's glow screams not just pottery. You're standing so close you can smell the jar's contents, rich, almost syrupy. Dionysus is talking to himself, something about silence inside, and no gods, no mortals. You're seeing his plan clearer. The jar's a cocoon, a way to escape the chaos of his life. You remember its mystical aura, how it felt alive in the vineyard's quiet. Maybe it's enchanted to hold more than wine. Maybe his spirit, his exhaustion. You're wondering if he's planning a quick snooze or something deeper, like a divine reboot. A stray moth flutters by, drawn to the jar's glow. Dionysus shoos it away, chuckling. "No room for you, buddy." Joke 1. It's like your cat claiming the best spot on the couch. Rude but cute. You're grinning, but you're focused on his next move. He's peering into the jar's dark mouth, his crown slipping as he leans. You're betting he's sizing it up, wondering if a god can even fit. You recall the Olympians' jabs about his slacking. This nap might be his middle finger to them, wrapped in a clay hug. You step back, giving him space, but the jar's hum keeps you tethered. The festival is still humming, someone's trying to juggle torches, and it's going poorly. You're ignoring it, your eyes on Dionysus. He's muttering about wine's dual nature, how it's freedom and chains. You're feeling that, like when a night out starts epic but ends with you losing your keys. Joke 2. Wine's like Wi-Fi, great until it drops, leaving you stranded. You're starting to think the jar is his way to balance that, a place to rest within his own creation. The crowd's noise dips, and you catch a whiff of smoke from a dying torch. Dionysus is fully focused now, his hands gripping the jar's rim like it's an anchor. You're wondering if the jar's magic will amplify his power or just knock him out. You recall the potter's challenge, how it pushed him here in the vineyard's quiet, where his exhaustion showed. The jar's hum feels like a lullaby, and you're sensing he's ready to climb in to test this wild plan. You trip on a loose pebble, and Dionysus glances back, smirking. Mortals, always stumbling. Joke 3, it's like your phone autocorrecting hero to heron. Embarrassing, but human. You're back in the moment, the jars glow brighter, its aura wrapping you both. Dionysus swings his other leg up, balancing on the rim like a kid on a diving board. You're not blinking, your heart racing as you watch him teeter, his nap plan seconds from becoming reality. You're yanked back to Mount Olympus. The village square's buzz replaced by a shimmering hall where gods sprawl on clouds, their laughter sharp as shattered glass. Dionysus is absent, but you're catching whispers about his jar napping scheme, and the Olympians are taking bets like it's the divine Super Bowl. You're dodging stray ambrosia globs, weaving through gold pillars as you eavesdrop on their mockery and wagers, sensing how this cosmic gambling pushes Dionysus toward his bizarre plan. The air's electric with ozone and arrogance, and you're hooked, your sandals slipping on the marble floor as you listen in.
Zeus lounges on his throne, lightning crackling in one hand, a goblet in the other. 10 drachmas he falls out drunk. He booms, and Poseidon laughs, betting Dionysus won't even fit in the jar. Aphrodite, twirling a lock of hair, wagers he'll dream up a new wine instead. You're rolling your eyes, typical gods, turning his burnout into a game show. Historically, Greek gods often meddled in each other's plans, their rivalries driving myths like the Trojan War. That's the mainstream fact, straight from Homer's epics. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient texts suggest gods placed literal bets, using mortal lives or divine favors as currency. Historians still argue whether this was allegory or a reflection of cult practices. You're betting allegory, but these gods seem petty enough for real stakes. You slip behind a pillar, catching Athena's cool stare. She's not betting, just muttering about undignified behavior. You're thinking about Dionysus, how their jabs in that earlier Olympus roast hit him hard. You remember the jar's hum, its clay glow in the village square. This betting frenzy feels like another shove, daring him to climb inside and prove them wrong, or right. You're wondering if he knows they're watching, if that's part of his plan, like a reality star flipping the script. A nymph bumps into you, spilling nectar on your tunic. Oops, mortal, she giggles, and you brush it off, annoyed. Joke 1. It's like getting splashed at a concert, wet and avoidable. You're refocusing, catching Hermes zip by, shouting odds on whether Dionysus will snore or sing in the jar. You're starting to see this as more than gossip. It's pressure, piling on his exhaustion from the vineyard, the Maenads, that potter's challenge. The jar's his rebellion, maybe, a way to stick it to these smug betters. You move closer to the action, the air tingling with divine energy. Apollo's strumming a lyre, betting Dionysus will write bad poetry mid-nap. You're feeling for the guy, like when your friends tease your quirky hobby, but you lean into it harder. Joke 2. It's like your group chat roasting your new haircut, so you dye it neon. You're betting the jar's more than a nap spot, maybe a stage for Dionysus to show his power, or just to get some peace. You picture its swirls, its mystical aura, and wonder if it's amplifying their bets somehow, like a cosmic antenna. A peacock struts by, Hera's, no doubt, and you sidestep its tail. The god's laughter spikes as Zeus ups his bet. He'll trip climbing in. You're annoyed on Dionysus's behalf, but you're curious too. Will their taunts make him reckless, or is he playing them, using the jar to flip their game? You're dying to know, but you're stuck here, surrounded by immortal bookies. You recall the village square,
how he teetered on the jar's rim, ready to dive in. You stumble over a cloud's edge, and Hermes cackles. Clumsy mortal, he teases, tossing you a grape. Joke 3. It's like tripping at a party and pretending it's a dance move. Smooth, right? You're back in the moment, the gods' bets growing louder, their voices a chorus of doubt. You're itching to see Dionysus's next move, betting he's about to climb that jar and shake up their odds. You're ready to zip back to Earth, your heart thumping as you wait for the god to turn their laughter into awe. You're back in the village square, the Olympian betting pool a distant hum as you stand near the wine jar, its clay swirls shimmering under a fading moon. Dionysus is still perched on its rim, one hand gripping the edge, his eyes tracing its patterns like they hold a secret code. The festival's chaos has dulled. Most revelers are slumped or stumbling home, but you're focused on the jar's secret history, its ancient origins tied to divine craftsmanship that's pulling Dionysus closer to his nap plan. The air's cool, tangy with fermenting grapes, and you're leaning in, your sandals crunching on scattered pebbles, ready to uncover what makes this pythos so special. You run your hand along the jar's surface, its clay surprisingly warm, like it's alive. Dionysus mutters, "This wasn't made by mortal hands," and you catch a glint of reverence in his voice. You're picturing Hephaestus, the smith god, forging it in his volcanic workshop, or maybe Gaia herself shaping it from primal earth. Historically, pithoi were crafted with precision in ancient Greece, often decorated with geometric or mythic designs, some found intact in Minoan ruins. That's the mainstream fact, grounded in archaeology. But here's a quirky tidbit. Certain myths claim sacred jars were imbued with divine essence, used to store not just wine, but godly power, like a battery for immortality. Historians still argue whether these stories were ritual hype or hints at lost magic. You're betting magic because this jar's hum feels like a heartbeat, and Dionysus is all in. He leans closer, his ivy crown slipping as he peers inside. You're catching his vibe, part curiosity, part exhaustion, like he's found a piece of his past. You remember the vineyard's quiet, his pride in wine, and the Olympian's bets egging him on. This jar is no random prop, it's a relic, maybe tied to his birth as a half-mortal god or his first batch of wine. You're wondering if its craftsmanship holds a clue to his nap plan, like a divine user manual etched in clay. A stray cat slinks by, eyeing you warily. Dionysus chuckles. Even cats know this jar's trouble. Joke 1. It's like your pet sniffing a new gadget, sensing chaos. You're grinning, but you're focused on the jar's swirls, which seem to shift, forming vines or faces. You blink, and they're still again. You're starting to think it's enchanted, forged to channel Dionysus's essence, maybe to amplify his power or cradle his fatigue. You're dying to ask, but he's lost in thought, muttering about old promises and Clay's memory. You step back, the festival's last lyre notes fading. The jar's hum grows louder, like a lullaby only you and Dionysus hear. You're piecing it together, the Maenad's frenzy, the potter's challenge, Olympus' mockery. All roads lead here, to a jar that's more than pottery. You're betting it's a divine artifact, crafted to hold wine's magic or even a god's dreams. Joke 2, it's like a fancy coffee maker, but for divine naps instead of lattes. You're feeling the weight of its history, like you're touching a piece of eternity. The crowd's almost gone, leaving scattered goblets and grape stems. Dionysus is still on the rim, his fingers tracing a swirl that looks like a grapevine. You're wondering if he helped craft it back when he was a young god, or if it's older, a gift from a forgotten deity. You recall the vineyard's vines, how they seem to love him. Maybe this jar's the same, a creation that knows its maker. You're hooked, your pulse steady as you watch him, sensing he's closer to climbing in. You kick a stray olive, and it rolls into the dark. Dionysus glances over, smirking. Mortals, always messing up my vibe. Joke 3. It's like dropping your phone mid-selfie. Clumsy but human. You're back in the moment. The jars glow brighter. It's hum a soft song. Dionysus shifts, his body tensing like he's about to make a move. You're not blinking, your heart thumping as you wait. The jar's ancient power wrapping you both in its spell, ready for his next step. You're back in the village square, the festival's last stragglers stumbling into the night, leaving you and Dionysus alone with the wine jar. Its clay swirls glow faintly, and he's still perched on its rim. One leg swung inside, his eyes glinting with a mix of defiance and fatigue. The air's cool, heavy with the scent of spilled wine, and you're slipping past a group of Maenads who've reappeared, their torches casting wild shadows. They're guarding Dionysus's nap scheme, their chants low and fierce, and you're here to navigate their frenzy while sensing how they protect his plan to crawl into that enchanted Pythos. Your heart's thumping, sandals silent on the dirt as you stick close. The Maenads move like a pack, their hair tangled with ivy, eyes gleaming with devotion. They circle the jar, humming a hymn that makes your skin prickle, like static before a storm. You're ducking their swaying torches, keeping Dionysus in sight. Historically, Maenads were Dionysus's sacred followers. Their ecstatic rituals documented in texts like the Bacchae, where they tore apart unbelievers in a divine frenzy. That's the mainstream fact, rooted in ancient drama. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some vase paintings show Maenads guarding sacred objects, like altars or jars, as if they were divine bouncers. Historians still argue whether they were priestesses or just mythologized party girls. You're betting priestesses because these women are intense, their presence a wall around Dionysus's plan. You catch Dionysus's nod to them, subtle but firm, like he's trusting them to keep the world at bay. "Keep it quiet, sisters," he murmurs, and they tighten their circle, glaring at a stray drunk who wanders too close. You're seeing their role clearer. They're not just chaos agents, like back at the festival. They're his shield, giving him space to chase this nap. You remember the jar's hum, its ancient craftsmanship, and wonder if the Maenads know its power, if they're protecting a ritual, not just a whim. A torch swings near your face, and you jerk back, heart skipping. One Maenad smirks. "Watch yourself, Shadow." Joke 1. It's like dodging your mom's spatula when you sneak a cookie. Scary but thrilling. You're keeping low, weaving through their ranks. Dionysus is half inside the jar now, his cloak snagging on the rim. You're betting the Maenads are why no one's bothering him. Their chance a barrier against curious mortals or Olympian spies. You recall those gods' bets, their laughter. Maybe the Maenads are his counter, loyal, where Olympus mocks. You pause by the jar, its glow warmer, its hum a steady pulse. The Maenads' song shifts, softer like a lullaby, and you're feeling its pull like you could nap yourself. You're thinking about the vineyard's quiet, Dionysus's exhaustion, and the potter's challenge that pushed him here. The Maenads are his allies, ensuring he gets this moment. Joke 2, they're like your best friend gatekeeping your Netflix binge from nosy roommates. You're wondering if they'll join him in the jar. Not likely, but their devotion's fierce, like they'd guard it for centuries. A pebble skitters underfoot, and a Maenad's eyes snap to you. You freeze, but she just tosses you a grape, her smile sharp. You're relieved, but you're not relaxing. This crew's unpredictable. You're focused on Dionysus, who's muttering about clay dreams again, his body's sliding deeper into the jar. You're sensing the Maenad's role is bigger than protection. Maybe they're part of the jar's ritual, their chants unlocking its magic. You're dying to know, but you're just a mortal. Slipping through their ranks, the jar's aura wrapping you tight. You nearly trip on a discarded wineskin, and a Maenad laughs, low and throaty. "Clumsy dreamer," she teases. Joke 3. It's like fumbling your phone during a stealthy late-night snack run. Busted. You're back in the moment, The jars hum louder, the Maenad's torches flickering. Dionysus is almost fully inside now, his crown barely visible. You're not blinking, your pulse racing as you watch the Maenad's tighten their circle, their chants rising, guarding his leap into the jar's mysterious embrace. You're still in the village square. The Maenad's chants a low, hypnotic drone as they guard the wine jar, its clay swirls pulsing like a living thing. Dionysus is half inside, his legs vanishing into its dark mouth, his ivy crown catching the last torchlight. The festival's faded to a few snoring drunks, and you're close enough to feel the jar's hum, now a steady thrum. You're here to witness Dionysus's wine-fueled epiphany about rest's value. The moment he realizes this nap isn't just escape, but a divine necessity. The air's thick with fermenting grapes and purpose, and you're leaning in, your sandals silent on the dirt, heart pounding as you watch. Dionysus pauses, one hand gripping the jar's rim, his face lit by its glow. "Wine gives, wine takes," he says, voice soft but heavy, like he's cracked a cosmic code. You're catching his drift. Wine's his creation, sparking joy and chaos, but it's drained him, from Olympus's parties to the Maenad's frenzy. You're seeing his eyes clear, like he's sober for the first time in centuries. Historically, Dionysus was a god of transformation. His myths, like turning water to wine or enemies to vines, showing his power to shift realities. That's the mainstream fact, rooted in texts like Homeric hymns. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient cults believed his rest periods were sacred, times when he retreated to renew his divine spark. Historians still argue whether these were symbolic or literal naps. You're betting literal because that jar is calling him like a cosmic snooze button. You're standing so close, the jar's hum vibrates in your chest. Dionysus is talking now, to himself or the jar, about how mortals rest, gods endure. You're feeling his revelation. Rest isn't weakness, it's power. A way to reclaim his essence. You remember the vineyard's quiet, his slumped shoulders, and the Olympian's bets mocking his burnout. This naps is his rebellion, a divine pause to balance wine's double edge. You're wondering if the jar's magic, its ancient craftsmanship, will amplify this epiphany. Like a meditation app for gods, a stray breeze carries a whiff of smoke, and Dionysus laughs, soft and raw. "Even the wind's tired," he says. Joke 1. It's like your fan giving up midsummer, over it. You're grinning, but you're locked on him, his body's sliding deeper into the jar. You're thinking about the potter's challenge, how it pushed him here, and the Maenad's chance shielding his plan. This moment feels sacred, like he's not just napping, but rewriting his role. You're betting the jar's a vessel for more than wine. Maybe for his thoughts, his power, his need to just be. You step back, giving him space, but the jar's glow keeps you tethered. The Maenad's voices dip, almost tender, like they sense his shift. You're recalling wine's duality, how it lifted the festival but floored the potter. Dionysus gets it now. Rest is his way to harness that chaos, to keep being the god mortals love. Joke 2, it's like rebooting your router to fix the Wi-Fi. Simple, but genius. You're wondering if he'll emerge stronger, or if the jar is just a divine duvet for a long nap. A pebble skitters underfoot, and you freeze, but the Maenads don't notice, their eyes on Dionysus. You're feeling the weight of his epiphany, like when you realize a day off can save your sanity. You're dying to know what's inside the jar. Wine, magic, or just dark, cool quiet. You recall its hum, its swirls, and the Olympian's laughter, all driving him here. You're hooked, your pulse steady as you watch him sink lower, his crown now gone, lost in the jar's depths. You nearly bump a Maenad's torch, and she hisses, "Careful, dreamer." Joke 3, it's like knocking over your coffee while dodging a Zoom call. Clumsy chaos. You're back in the moment. The jars hum a song. The Maenads chants a soft wall. Dionysus is almost fully inside, his hands slipping from the rim. You're not blinking, your heart racing as you wait, sensing his epiphany is about to seal his dive into the jar's mysterious embrace. You're still in the village square. The Maenads chants a soft hum as they circle the wine jar. Its clay swirls now blazing with a faint, otherworldly light. Dionysus is almost gone, his body sliding into the jar's dark mouth, only his hands visible, gripping the rim like he's hesitating on a high dive. The festival's last echoes, drunk snores, a distant lyre, fade, and you're cringing as he clumsily climbs in, his nap plan becoming real in the tight squeeze of this enchanted pythos. The air's thick with wine fumes and tension, and you're leaning in, your sandals rooted to the dirt, heart thumping as you watch this divine fumble unfold. Dionysus grunts, his cloak snagging on the jar's edge as he wiggles deeper. "Why is it so narrow?" he mutters, and you stifle a laugh. He's a god, but he's wrestling this like you'd fight a too small sleeping bag. You're feeling the jar's hum, stronger now, like it's cheering him on. Historically, pithoi were designed with narrow necks to seal contents, often requiring careful pouring or scooping, a practical fact from ancient pottery studies. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some myths suggest sacred jars could embrace their contents, magically resizing or guiding what entered. Historians still argue whether this was poetic or a nod to ritual objects with divine quirks. You're betting quirks because this jar is glowing like it's got an agenda, and Dionysus is its VIP. You're close enough to see his fingers slip, then catch the rim again. The Maenads' chants grow urgent, like they're willing him inside. You're recalling his epiphany about rest, how wine's chaos drained him from Olympus's bets to the potter's challenge. This clumsy climb isn't just a nap. It's a leap into his own creation, a reclaiming of peace. You're wondering if the jar's magic will reshape him, like a cocoon for a tired god. The air feels heavy, the glow wrapping you both, and you're cringing as he bangs his elbow, cursing under his breath. A stray grape rolls by, and you nudge it aside. Dionysus huffs. "Mortals make better jars than this." Joke 1. It's like your IKEA furniture fighting back during assembly. Painful, but funny. You're grinning, but you're locked on him. His body now half swallowed by the jar. You're thinking about the vineyard's quiet, his exhaustion, and the Maenad's loyalty guarding this moment. The jar's hum is a pulse, and you're betting it's not just holding wine, but something bigger. His essence, his dreams, maybe his power. You're dying to know what happens when he's fully inside. You step closer, the Maenad's torches casting your shadow on the jar. Dionysus is struggling, one leg flailing as he tries to fit. You're feeling for him, like when you squeeze into skinny jeans after a big lunch. Joke 2. It's like your car's GPS insisting you can fit through a tiny alley. Optimistic, but dicey. You're wondering if the jar's testing him, its magic making him earn this rest. You recall its ancient craftsmanship, maybe forged by Hephaestus, and the Olympians' laughter betting he'd fail. This climbs his answer, clumsy but defiant. The Maenad's voices dip, almost reverent, as Dionysus's hands slip lower. You're sensing the jar's power peaking, its glow so bright it stings your eyes. You're thinking about wine's duality, joy and chaos, and how he's diving into it, literally. You're hooked, your pulse racing as he grunts again, his crown long gone, lost in the jar's depths. You're wondering if he'll fit, if the jar will seal him in like a divine Tupperware. You're just a mortal watching a god wrestle with clay and fate. You nearly trip on a discarded goblet, and a Maenad hisses, "Stay back, dreamer." Joke 3. It's like dropping your fork at a fancy dinner, awkward and loud. You're back in the moment, the jars hum a roar, the Maenad's chants a shield. Dionysus is almost gone, his fingers barely visible. You're not blinking, your heart pounding as you wait. the jar's magic crackling, ready to swallow him whole in its tight, mystical embrace. You're still in the village square, the Maenad's chants now a faint murmur as the wine jar stands alone. Its clay swirls dimming like a candle burning low. Dionysus is gone, fully inside, the Pythos sealing his clumsy descent into its dark, mystical depths. The festival's remnants, scattered goblets, snoring revelers, are quiet, but you're sensing a new presence, Olympian gods peeking from their cloudy perch, snickering at Dionysus's absurd jar nap. You're here to catch their spying and mockery, feeling how their giggles add weight to his bold move. The air is cool, thick with fermenting grapes, and you're tiptoeing closer to the jar, heart thumping, as you strain to hear their divine whispers. You glance up, and there they are, faint shimmers in the sky, like heat waves with attitude. Zeus's booming chuckle rolls like distant thunder, and you catch Apollo's voice. He's actually sleeping in it. You're rolling your eyes, but you're also tense, knowing their spying could mess with Dionysus's plan. Historically, Greek gods were notorious busybodies, meddling in mortal and divine affairs, as seen in myths like the Odyssey, where they eavesdrop and intervene. That's the mainstream fact, straight from epic poems. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient texts hint gods used cloud mirrors to spy, a kind of divine CCTV. Historians still argue whether this was poetic or a literal belief in their omniscience. You're betting poetic, but those glints above feel real, and they're watching the jar like it's primetime drama. You creep closer to the Pythos, its hum softer now, like it's cradling Dionysus. You're imagining him curled inside, maybe snoring, maybe dreaming. You recall his epiphany about rest, the Maenad's guard, and the jar's ancient craftsmanship. The god's snickers, Hera's sharp tisk, Hermes' cackle feel like a challenge, daring him to fail. You're wondering if he senses them, if their laughter will jolt him out or make him dig in deeper. The jar's glow is faint, but you're betting its magic is shielding him. A clay fortress against Olympus's shade. A stray breeze rustles your tunic, and you shiver. Zeus's voice rumbles. Bet he's stuck. And Poseidon laughs. Or drowning in wine. You're annoyed for Dionysus, like when your friends mock your quirky project, but you nail it anyway. Joke 1. It's like your group chat clowning your new hobby, but you're secretly crushing it. You're feeling the jar's pull, its aura a quiet defiance against their noise. You're wondering if this nap's a performance for them, a way to flip their bets from that Olympian gambling fest. You lean against the jar, its clay cool and steady. The Maenads are gone, maybe trusting the jar's power now. You're catching Aphrodite's softer tone above. Let him rest, he's earned it. But it's drowned by Apollo's snort. You're thinking about the vineyard's weight, the potter's challenge, and how Dionysus climbed in despite it all. Joke 2. It's like crawling into bed after a chaotic day, but your bed's a glowing jar and your roommates are gods. You're betting the jar is more than a hideout, maybe a stage for his comeback, powered by its ancient magic. The sky flickers, and you spot Artemis's silhouette, muttering about undignified naps. You're sensing their spying isn't just fun. It's a test, like they're waiting for Dionysus to flop or shine. You're dying to know what's happening inside the jar. Is he dreaming, recharging, or just out cold? You recall its hum, its swirls, and the Maenad's chants, all pointing to something big. You're hooked, your pulse steady as you linger by the Pythos. Its glow a faint pulse under your palm. You step on a stray olive, and it crunches loudly. A cloud above shifts, and Hermes' voice teases, "Clumsy mortal down there." Joke 3. It's like tripping during a quiet scene at the movies. Everyone notices. You're back in the moment, the jars hum a whisper, the god's giggles fading. You're not blinking, your heart racing as you press closer to the Pythos, waiting for a sign that Dionysus's nap is shaking up their divine sitcom. You're still in the village square, the night deep and still, the wine jar standing like a silent sentinel. Its clay swirls now a soft, pulsing glow. The Olympian snickers have faded from the sky, and the Maenads are long gone, leaving you alone with the Pythos that's swallowed Dionysus whole. You're pressing your ear to its cool surface, catching a faint hum, and you're glimpsing his surreal dreams inside this wine-soaked jar, visions that weave his past, his power, and his exhaustion. The air's heavy with fermenting grapes, and you're rooted here, heart thumping, as you try to peer into the god's slumbering mind. The jar's hum feels like a heartbeat, and you're sensing flashes, vivid, disjointed images leaking from its magic. You see Dionysus wandering a vineyard, but the vines are made of stars, coiling around him like they're singing. Then it shifts. He's a boy, half mortal, dodging Hera's wrath, his laughter sharp with fear. You're not sure if you're imagining it, but the jar's glow pulses with each scene. Historically, Dionysus's myths often involved dreams or visions, like his prophetic warnings in the Bacchae, tying him to divine insight. That's the mainstream fact, rooted in ancient drama. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some Greek cults believed sleep in sacred spaces, like jars or caves, could channel godly messages, a kind of divine REM cycle. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual or just wine-induced tripping. You're betting spiritual because these glimpses feel too real, like you're hacking into Dionysus's dreamscape. You're leaning closer, the jar's clay tingling under your fingers. Another flash. Dionysus dances with Maenads, but their faces melt into wine rivers, pulling him under. You're feeling his exhaustion, the weight of centuries. Olympus's bets, the potter's challenge, the vineyard's endless call. You're wondering if the jar's magic is spinning these dreams, maybe helping him process his dual nature as joy-bringer and chaos-maker. You recall its ancient craftsmanship, possibly Hephaestus forged, and you're betting it's a dream machine, not just a nap pod. A stray leaf skitters across the dirt, and you jump, half expecting a Maenad. Nothing, just the wind. You're chuckling at yourself. Joke 1. It's like freaking out over a creaky floorboard at midnight. Spooky, but silly. You're back on the jar, catching another dream. Dionysus holds a goblet, but it's filled with light, not wine. And he's smiling, unburdened. You're sensing hope in these visions, like he's untangling his burnout, finding balance. You're thinking about his epiphany, how rest became his rebellion. Maybe the jar's dreams are his therapy, a way to recharge without Olympus's noise. You shift, your sandals crunching gravel. The jar's hum softens, but the visions keep coming. Now he's facing Zeus, laughing, unafraid, his ivy crown blazing. You're feeling the jar's power, like it's not just holding him but reshaping him, weaving wine's chaos into something new. You're recalling the Maenads' chants, their protective circle, and you're betting they knew this was more than a nap, a divine reset. Joke 2. It's like your phone updating overnight, but it's a god and the app's his soul. You're wondering if he'll wake up stronger or if these dreams are the real prize. The square's empty, torches burn to embers. You're alone with the jar, its glow a faint pulse. Another flash. Dionysus walks a vineyard, but it's endless, and he's alone, content. You're feeling his peace, like when you finally crash after a brutal week. You're dying to know if these dreams are memories, prophecies, or just wine-fueled nonsense, but you're just immortal, tapping into a god's REM cycle. You're hooked, your pulse steady as you press closer, the jar's magic wrapping you in its spell. You step back, tripping on a discarded wineskin. The jar's hum spikes, like it's scolding you. Joke 3. It's like your alarm clock yelling when you hit snooze. Rude but fair. You're back in the moment, the vision's fading, the jar's glow steady. You're not blinking, your heart racing as you linger, waiting for a sign that Dionysus's dreams are building to something epic inside this mystical clay cocoon. You're still in the village square, dawn's first light creeping over the horizon, painting the wine jar's clay swirls in soft pinks. Its hum has faded to a whisper, and Dionysus remains hidden inside. His dreams, those starry vineyards and blazing crowns, lingering in your mind. The festival's gone, leaving only scattered goblets and a stray sandal. But you're hearing new whispers. Mortals waking up, murmuring about their god's strange slumber in the Pythos. You're here to catch these rumors spreading, sensing how they shape the story of Dionysus's jar nap. The air is crisp, smelling of dew and old wine, and you're lingering by the jar, heart thumping, as you eavesdrop on the village buzz. A baker, hauling flour sacks, mutters to a weaver, "Heard Dionysus climbed into that jar, mad, right?" The weaver nods, eyes wide, whispering about divine dreams and wine's magic. You're catching their awe mixed with a pinch of fear, like they're gossiping about a celebrity stunt. Historically, oral traditions in ancient Greece spread myths rapidly, with festivals like the Dionysia amplifying tales of gods' deeds through the theater and song. That's the mainstream fact, grounded in cultural studies. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some sources suggest villagers treated unusual divine acts, like sleeping in jars, as omens, sparking local rituals or superstitions. Historians still argue whether these were grassroots beliefs or priestly propaganda. You're betting grassroots because these mortals sound genuinely spooked, their whispers circling the jar like moths. You lean against the pythos, its clay cool under your palm, and catch more chatter. A goat herd claims Dionysus is hiding from Zeus, while a kid insists he's brewing a new wine in there. You're smiling at their creativity, but you're also sensing the jar's power fueling these tales. You recall its glow, its ancient craftsmanship, and those dreams you glimpsed. Vines of stars, light-filled goblets. Maybe the jar's leaking magic, inspiring these rumors. Or maybe mortals just love a wild story. You're wondering how Dionysus's nap will grow in their telling. Like a viral post spiraling out of control. A stray dog sniffs your sandal, and you shoo it gently. The baker laughs. Even dogs want the gossip. Joke 1. It's like your nosy neighbor eavesdropping on your phone call. Cute but intrusive. You're back on the whispers, catching a potter. Not that potter. Musing that the jar's sacred now, touched by a god. You're thinking about the Maenad's chants, their protective circle, and how they'd love this chatter. You're betting these rumors will spread beyond the village, maybe sparking a new cult or festival. You're hooked, your pulse steady as you listen, the jar's hum a faint echo. You shift, catching a fishmonger's tale. He's dreaming up a wine that never runs dry. You're chuckling, but you're also feeling the weight of their words. These mortals see Dionysus's nap as more than a stunt. It's a mystery, a miracle. You're recalling his epiphany about rest, the Olympian's snickers, and the jar's mystical aura. Maybe it's amplifying these stories, turning a nap into legend. Joke 2. It's like your group chat hyping a simple coffee run into an epic quest. You're wondering if Dionysus planned this, using the jar to stir mortal imaginations. The square's waking up, kids chase a goat, a vendor hawks olives. You're still by the jar, catching a weaver's whisper. What if he never wakes? You're sensing their mix of wonder and worry, like fans obsessing over a cliffhanger. You're dying to know if Dionysus hears these rumors in his dreams, if they're shaping his slumber. You recall the vineyard's quiet, his exhaustion, and the Maenad's loyalty. The jar's glow is faint now, but you're betting it's still working its magic, weaving mortal tales into its spell. You step on a grape, its juice squishing underfoot. A kid giggles. Clumsy stranger. Joke 3. It's like spilling sauce on your shirt at a barbecue. Messy but human. You're back in the moment, the whispers growing louder. The jar's hum, a soft pulse. You're not blinking, your heart racing as you linger, waiting for the rumors to swell. sensing they're building Dionysus's nap into something that'll echo far beyond this sleepy square. You're still in the village square, the morning sun climbing higher, warming the wine jar's clay as its faint glow steadies, like a heartbeat slowing down. The mortal whispers about Dionysus's nap are buzzing louder. Bakers, weavers, kids all spinning tales. But your focus shifts as the jar's hum spikes, then quiets. A ripple runs through the air, and out he comes. Dionysus, climbing from the pithos, his eyes bright but dazed, his cloak rumpled like he's been through a divine spin cycle. You're here to watch the aftermath of his nap, catching how he's refreshed yet disoriented, the jar's magic lingering on him, the squares alive with chatter, and you're leaning in, sandals scuffing the dirt, heart thumping as you track his every move. Dionysus grips the jar's rim, hauling himself out with a grunt. That was something, he mutters, blinking at the sunlight like it's personally offended him. You're noticing his vibe, energized but wobbly, like you after a power nap that's just a tad too long. The jar's swirls are dim now, its hum barely a whisper, but you're betting its magic worked some kind of mojo. Historically, Dionysus was linked to renewal, his myths, like his rebirth from Zeus's thigh, tied to cycles of death and revival. That's the mainstream fact, straight from ancient hymns. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some Greek rituals involved waking gods from sacred sleep, believing it restored their power. Historians still argue whether this was symbolic or a literal divine recharge. You're betting recharge because Dionysus looks like he's swapped his burnout for a spark, even if he's stumbling. You step closer, catching a whiff of wine and earth on him. He shakes out his cloak, muttering about weird dreams and starry vines. You're recalling those surreal glimpses you caught, vineyards of light, goblets of stars, and you're wondering if the jar's magic spun them, maybe healing his exhaustion from Olympus's bets and the Maenad's frenzy. The villagers are staring now, their whispers halting as they spot their god, some kneeling, others gaping. You're sensing their awe, like they're seeing a rock star post-rehab glow up. A stray goat bleats and Dionysus laughs, a sharp, clear sound. Back to work, huh? He says, eyeing the crowd. Joke 1. It's like your alarm clock ruining a perfect nap. Rude but necessary. You're grinning, but you're locked on him, noticing his steadier stance, though he sways when a kid tosses a grape his way. You're thinking about the potter's challenge, the vineyard's weight, and how the jar's ancient craftsmanship, maybe Hephaestus forged, gave him this reset. You're betting he's not just rested but changed, like the jar rewired his divine circuits. You sidestep a spilled wineskin, the ground sticky. The villagers are creeping closer, one muttering, "He's glowing." You're seeing it too, a faint shimmer on his skin, like the jar's magic rubbed off. You're recalling the rumors, how they called his nap a miracle or omen. Maybe they're right. Maybe the jar's a divine battery and he's fully charged. Joke 2, it's like your phone hitting 100% after a dodgy charger. Miraculous. You're wondering if he'll address the crowd, maybe confirm their wild tales, or just vanish back to Olympus. The square is filling up, more mortals drawn by the buzz. Dionysus stretches, cracking his neck, and you're catching his disorientation, like he's not sure where he parked his chariot. You're feeling for him, like when you wake up on a friend's couch, unsure what day it is. You're dying to know what's next. Will he revel with these mortals, or has the jar's nap shifted his whole deal? You recall the Maenad's chants, their protective circle, and you're betting they'd be proud of this moment. You trip on a loose stone, and a villager steadies you, chuckling. Eyes on the god, not your feet. Joke 3, it's like tripping mid-TikTok scroll. Distracted, but human. You're back in the moment, the jar's hum gone. Dionysus now fully out, brushing dirt off his cloak. The crowd's murmurs swell, and you're not blinking, your heart racing as you watch him face the village, his refreshed but dazed glow hinting at what's coming next. You're still in the village square, the morning sun now bright, casting long shadows from the wine jar. Its clay swirls dull but still faintly warm. Dionysus stands before it, his cloak dusted off, his eyes clearer but still carrying that post-nap haze. The villagers' whispers have turned to a nervous hum, their awe palpable as they watch their god. Some clutching goblets like talismans. You're whisked back to Mount Olympus, though, landing in a glittering hall where gods are reacting loudly to Dionysus's jar nap, debating if it's a divine precedent or just a stunt. You're dodging stray ambrosia splashes, heart thumping, as you eavesdrop on their chaotic argument, sensing how it shapes his bold move. The hall's a riot. Zeus slams his fist, lightning crackling, shouting, "He's made napping a spectacle." Athena, cool as ever, counters, "It's strategic rest, not laziness." Apollo's laughing, calling it performance art for mortals. You're catching their mix of shock and grudging respect, like they didn't expect Dionysus to pull it off. Historically, Greek gods often set precedents through bold acts, like Prometheus stealing fire, shaping mortal and divine rules. That's the mainstream fact, rooted in myths like Hesiod's Theogony. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some obscure texts suggest gods' retreats, like naps or exiles, sparked new rituals as mortals mimicked them. Historians still argue whether these were divine PR or genuine shifts in worship. You're betting PR, but this debate feels big, like Dionysus's nap might rewrite Olympus's playbook. You slip behind a gold pillar, the air sharp with ozone. Hera's voice cuts through. "He's mocking our duties." But Aphrodite purrs, or redefining them. You're thinking about the jar's magic, its ancient craftsmanship, and those starry dreams you glimpsed. The god's reactions, part jeer, part awe, mirror the villagers' rumors, amplifying his nap into legend. You're wondering if Dionysus planned this, using the jar to stir both realms, like a viral stunt that hits every feed. You recall his refreshed glow, his disoriented grin, and you're betting he's shaken their smug bets from that earlier gambling fest. A nymph bumps you, spilling nectar. "Oops, mortal," she giggles. Joke one. It's like getting splashed at a bar. Annoying but festive. You're refocusing, catching Hermes zip by, shouting, "He's got mortals worshipping jars now." You're seeing the ripple effect, the village buzz, the Olympian uproar. You're feeling for Dionysus, like when your bold move at work gets everyone talking, good and bad. You're wondering if this debate will reach him, if he'll care, or if the jar's rest was enough to tune them out. You lean closer to the action, Zeus now pacing, muttering about discipline. Athena's arguing that rest boosts power, citing Dionysus's glow. You're recalling the Maenad's chants, the potter's challenge, and the vineyard's weight, all pushing him to the jar. This debate feels like a trial, deciding if his nap's a quirk or a revolution. Joke 2, it's like your boss debating your WFH day, game changer or slacking. You're betting revolution because the jar's magic, maybe Hephaestus forged, gave him that edge, and the gods know it. A peacock, Hera's, naturally, struts by, eyeing you. You sidestep, heart steady. The gods' voices rise. Poseidon betting Dionysus will nap again by noon. You're annoyed, but you're also curious. Will this spark new divine habits, or is it just Dionysus being Dionysus? You're dying to know if he's hearing this in the village, if the jar's dreams prepped him for this fallout. You recall its hum, its glow, and the mortal's awe. You're hooked, lingering in the hall's chaos, sensing this debate's about to ripple back to earth. You trip over a cloud's edge, and Apollo snickers. Mortals so grounded. Joke 3. It's like slipping on ice mid-strut. humbling but funny. You're back in the moment, the gods' shouts peaking. They debate a storm over Dionysus's nap. You're not blinking, your pulse racing as you wait, ready to zip back to the village and see how this Olympian uproar lands with the god who dared to sleep in a jar. You're back in the village square, the midday sun blazing, warming the wine jar's clay. It swirls now dull but still faintly etched with that mystical vibe. Dionysus is nearby, leaning against a cart, chatting with awestruck villagers who offer him grapes and shy smiles. His glow's still there, softer now, but he's steady, no longer dazed. You're watching mortals begin to venerate wine jars, inspired by his nap, their whispers turning into rituals around the pythos that held a god. The air's alive with olive smoke and reverence, and you're weaving through the crowd, heart thumping, as you catch this new wave of worship taking root. A weaver kneels by the jar, placing a clay cup at its base, murmuring thanks for divine rest. A baker follows, setting down a loaf, and soon a small pile forms, figs, olives, even a kid's woven bracelet. You're sensing their awe, like they're turning the jar into a shrine. Historically, ancient Greeks often sanctified objects touched by gods, like altars or trees, creating sacred sites for offerings, as seen in practices at Delphi. That's the mainstream fact, grounded in archaeology. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some sources claim villagers would honor god-touched items, like jars or stones, with impromptu cults, believing they held residual divinity. Historians still argue whether these were local fads or sanctioned rituals. You're betting fads because this feels organic. The villagers' rumors about Dionysus's dreams and miracles fueling their devotion. You step closer to the jar, its hum gone but its presence heavy, like it's soaking up the offerings. You're thinking about Dionysus' nap, how it sparked this, from the Maenads' chants to the Olympians' debate. You're noticing villagers glancing at him, then the jar, like they're connecting his glow to its magic. You're wondering if he meant to start this, or if the jar's ancient craftsmanship, maybe Hephaestus forged, amplified his act into a legend. You recall those starry dreams, his refreshed vibe, and you're betting this worship's a ripple from that. A stray goat nibbles a fig offering, and a kid shoos it, giggling. Dionysus laughs from his cart. Let it feast. Joke 1. It's like your dog stealing your pizza. Thief, but adorable. You're grinning, but you're focused on the jar, now ringed with mortals praying for rest and wine. You're sensing a shift, like the jar is not just a vessel, but a symbol of Dionysus's epiphany about rest's power. You're thinking about the potter's challenge, the vineyard's weight, and how this nap turned a pythos into a pilgrimage site. You're hooked, your pulse steady as you watch the crowd grow. You weave through, catching a potter shaping tiny clay jars, muttering there for Dionysus' blessing. You're seeing the rumors take shape, mortals believing the jar's magic can heal or inspire, like a divine energy drink. You're recalling the Olympians' snickers, how they bet he'd fail, and you're betting this worship would shut them up. Joke 2, it's like your DIY project going viral while haters eat their words. Sweet revenge. You're wondering if this cult will spread, maybe to other villages, turning every pythos into a shrine. The square is bustling now, vendors pausing to add to the offerings. You're noticing Dionysus watching, his smirk soft, like he's proud but not surprised. You're thinking about the Maenads, how they'd love this, their protective circle now echoed in these mortals' devotion. You're dying to know if he'll bless the jar, maybe kick off a festival, or just let this grow wild. You recall its glow, its dreams, and you're betting its magic's still at work, stirring this faith. You trip on a loose olive, and a villager chuckles. Careful, pilgrim. Joke 3, it's like spilling coffee mid-rush. Clumsy, but human. You're back in the moment, the jars shadow long, the offerings piling up. Dionysus catches your eye, winking, and you're not blinking, your heart racing as you watch this worship bloom, sensing the jar's legacy is just beginning to unfold. You're still in the village square, the afternoon sun high, casting sharp shadows from the wine jar, now surrounded by a small shrine of offerings, clay cups, figs, and braided vines. Dionysus is the center of attention, standing on a cart, his cloak flung back, his refreshed glow undeniable as he raises a goblet to the growing crowd. Villagers cheer their reverence for the jar, spilling into adoration for him, and you're here to join this final toast, celebrating his quirky nap that's turned a pythos into a sacred symbol. The air is warm, buzzing with olive smoke and excitement, and you're weaving through the throng, heart thumping, as you raise an imaginary glass. Dionysus lifts his goblet, wine sloshing, and shouts, "To rest, to wine, to life." The crowd roars, some tossing grapes, others clinking cups. You're catching his energy, playful but grounded, like he's reclaimed his spark. Historically, Dionysus's festivals, like the Lanaya, ended with communal toasts, uniting mortals in celebration of his gifts, a mainstream fact from ancient records. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some sources claim spontaneous toasts to Dionysus could spark new rituals, as villagers honored unexpected divine acts. Historians still argue whether these were planned or organic outbursts of faith. You're betting organic because this feels raw, the crowd's love for the jar and its god exploding into this moment. You're close to the jar, its clay warm under your hand. No hum now, but still heavy with presence. You're thinking about its magic, those starry dreams, its ancient craftsmanship, and how it gave Dionysus this comeback. You recall the Maenad's chants, the Olympians' bets, and the potter's challenge, all leading to this toast. You're seeing villagers mimic him, raising cups by the jar like it's a holy relic. You're wondering if he's stoking this worship or just riding the wave, his grin wide as he drinks deeply. A kid bumps you, spilling juice on your tunic. Dionysus laughs from his cart. "Join the mess, mortal." Joke 1. It's like getting splashed at a picnic. Sticky but festive. You're grinning, but you're locked on him, his goblet gleaming. You're feeling the crowd's joy, like a block party where everyone's invited. You're betting this toast seals the jar's legend, tying Dionysus's nap to wine's magic in their hearts. You're thinking about the vineyard's quiet, his exhaustion, and how the jar's rest made this moment possible. You raise your imaginary cup, caught in the vibe. The crowd's chanting his name, and you're noticing potters crafting more jars, inspired by the one behind you. You're recalling the rumors, dreams, miracles, and how they've morphed into this ritual. You're wondering if Olympus is watching, if their debt has shifted to grudging respect. Joke 2. It's like your haters clapping when your side hustle blows up. Too late, pals. You're betting the jar's magic, maybe Hephaestus forged, is still at work, fueling this celebration, making Dionysus's nap a story for the ages. The square's packed now, villagers dancing, some tipsy already. You're catching Dionysus's eye, his wink quick but warm, like he knows you've followed this whole saga. You're thinking about the Maenads, how they'd join this party, and the Olympian snickers, now silenced by this mortal love. You're dying to know if he'll stay, maybe lead a festival or vanish to another vineyard. You recall the jar's glow, its dreams, and you're betting this toast is his victory lap, a nod to rest's power. You step on a stray vine, nearly slipping. A villager laughs. Dance, not fall. Joke 3. It's like tripping mid-karaoke, embarrassing, but you own it. You're back in the moment, the crowd's cheers peaking, the jar's shadow long. Dionysus drains his goblet, tossing it into the crowd, and you're not blinking, your heart racing as you join the toast, sensing this celebration's cementing the jar's place in their world and his. You're still in the village square, the sun dipping low, casting a golden haze over the wine jar. now a shrine piled with offerings, cups, vines, and scattered grapes. Dionysus is mingling with the villagers, his goblet empty, his glow softer but steady as he laughs with a potter and dodges a kid's tossed fig. The crowd's toast lingers in the air, their chants fading into a warm hum, and you're here to reflect on the legacy of Dionysus Nap, how it's shaped wine's cultural mystique and turned a pithos into a symbol of rest and revelry. The square buzzes with life, and you're leaning against the jar, heart steady, as you soak in the scene, ready to wrap this wild tale. You run your hand along the jar's clay. It swirls quiet now, but you're feeling its impact. The villagers' worship, those offerings, their tiny replica jars, shows how Dionysus Nap has woven itself into their lives, linking wine with divine renewal. Historically, Dionysus's cult influenced Greek culture deeply, with festivals like the Dionysia Birthing Theater and communal drinking rituals that defined social bonds. That's the mainstream fact, etched in ancient records. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some local cults revered God-touched objects, like jars or vines, as conduits for divine favor, sparking traditions that outlasted temples. Historians still argue whether these were fleeting or foundational to later wine worship. You're betting foundational, because this jar's legacy feels like it's sprouting roots, ready to spread beyond this village. You're watching Dionysus, his ease with the crowd, and you're thinking about his journey, the vineyard's wait, the Maenad's frenzy, the Olympian's bets, and that potter's challenge. The jar, maybe Hephaestus forged, was his refuge, its starry dreams a reset that's now a legend. You're seeing villagers mimic his nap story, some joking about jar naps for luck, others praying by pithoi for inspiration. You're betting wine's mystique, its power to lift and level, owes a debt to this moment when a god dared to rest and made it divine. A stray breeze carries olive smoke, and Dionysus catches your eye, winking. "Mortals, always dreaming," he says, tossing you a grape. Joke 1. It's like your friend hyping your nap as a power move. Cheeky, but true. You're grinning, but you're focused on the jar's shadow, long across the square. You're recalling its hum, those visions of light-filled goblets and how they fueled the rumors that became worship. You're wondering if Dionysus knew his nap would spark this, or if the jar's magic took the wheel, turning a whim into a cultural shift. You step back, the crowd thinning as evening nears. A weaver adds a woven vine to the jar's offerings, whispering thanks for wine's truth. You're feeling the legacy solidify, wine as joy, chaos, and now rest, all tied to Dionysus's clay cocoon. You're thinking about the Olympians' debate, how they called it a stunt, but the villagers' faith proves them wrong. Joke 2. It's like your quirky idea stealing the show while skeptics eat crow. Satisfying. You're betting this story will travel, maybe inspiring new festivals or Pythos shrines, cementing wine's sacred edge. The square's quieter now, torches flickering to life. You're lingering by the jar, its clay a silent witness to this saga. You're recalling the Maenad's loyalty, the potter's fall, and Dionysus's refreshed glow. You're wondering if he'll nap again, or if this was a one-time deal, the jar's magic spent. You're hooked, your pulse calm as you watch the last villagers drift away, their reverence for the jar a spark that'll burn long after tonight. You trip on a goblet, and a kid laughs. Clumsy pilgrim. Joke 3. It's like dropping your keys mid-rush, human to the core. You're back in the moment, the jar's legacy clear. Dionysus now slipping into the crowd, his laughter soft. As the stars emerge, you feel the village settle, the jar standing like a quiet guardian. Its clay holds the echo of Dionysus's dreams, the weight of mortal faith, and the whisper of wine's endless dance. You're drifting, the square fading into a gentle blur, the air cool against your skin. Let the night wrap you. Let the story linger like a sip of good wine. Smooth, warm, eternal. Sleep now, carried by the hum of vines and the promise of rest, just as Dionysus found his.